Hi, welcome back to this lecture on social justice and career guidance and Nordicity. So where we left off in the last part was where I had outlined the developments that led to this specific political brand of social democratic policies, and that we now know as the Nordic model for welfare. So I would like to go on and argue that the special policy brand of the Nordic welfare model actually contributes to a social system being rigged to be specifically concerned about social justice. And I think that one place to start talking about this is to look at the concept of welfare, because that lies at the heart of how the state takes responsibility for their citizens to achieve a state of welfare. So writers on welfare, they will say that being in a state of having welfare is to have what you think is needed. To have what is needed, to not struggle, to have shelter, food, water, security. And as we know, that might vary. That might vary in terms of context. It is colder in the north than in the south, so living arrangements are different. Hence, having what you need is different. But it is also something that responds to a cultural idea about, for instance, the need to cooperate in society, which is strong in the Nordic countries. The call for people to execute their citizenship is strong. And in order to be able to do that, you need education, you need a sense of worth, and you need to understand how the society and the state works, so that you actually have the means to participate because you understand it. So when it comes to how states define what is needed to achieve this state of welfare, and how states work to help citizens achieve what they need. For instance, Espen Andersen has analyzed clusters of welfare states, and he says that there are basically, at least in Europe and the Western world, 3 clusters of welfare states. The liberal one, excuse me, is the one that you will find in America, where welfare is commodified and good welfare services are basically a matter of being able to pay. That means that there is a minimum that the state provides for those citizens that does not have anything and need social support to survive. But the broad spectrum of welfare services are available to those who can pay for it. So this is something that we recognize from the discussion on health insurance and that kind of thing. In the conservative corporatist state, which you can find, at least according to Espen Andersen, in the southern part of Europe, welfare states work on the principle of more traditional values of, for instance, the church. Where the church influence on the states is strong, you will find welfare states that, for instance, support the family in its efforts to take care of its members. So it will support the family in having the mother stay at home with the children, or younger children taking care of their older parents, that kind of thing. In the social democratic welfare states, which Espen Andersen labels the Nordic ones, he says that the principle of egalitarianism, or of equality between people, and the need to level out inequality are the most important principles of how the state works to help citizens achieve what they need to feel safe and to participate in the state. So it works by the principle that people are basically of equal worth, and that they should have the same opportunity to realize their potentials, and more potentials than just being able to work, which is of high importance, but also to achieve other things like raising a family and participate in and execute their citizenship and participate. One important principle of this social democratic welfare model is stateness, which refers to a certain level or a higher level of trust between the state and the individual, where more responsibility is being put on the state than, for instance, in the corporatist, conservative welfare state, where the responsibility of the state ends outside the family, while in a social democratic state, the principle of stateness implies that the state will also take responsibility for the individual within the family. So we see that with, for instance, child care benefits, with geriatric care, with sickness benefits, that takes responsibility for the individual, even within the family, making the individual less dependent on his family to achieve this state of welfare. So it is important to understand so how does this actually work? What does the model do? So what is important to note is that this policy brand and this model recognize that individuals have several potentials, and it's not just about different interests, different talents, different wants and wishes, but individuals have different potentials in terms of being someone who works, being someone who takes care of a family, and being someone who participates in society. And for example, contrasted to the more conservative ways of thinking about welfare models, then the social democratic welfare model emphasizes that participating in family life and also working at the same time is something that is a shared responsibility and opportunity for all, no matter gender or economic situation. So, but it is also important to note that many of the benefits and these different elements of the social system that make up this welfare model is rigged towards emphasizing the ability to work. It is about making sure that more people are working than not. So that means that even though, for instance, family benefits will help both parents, for instance, be able to choose between working and staying at home with children, then, for instance, sickness benefits and unemployment benefits and many of the family benefits are rigged towards helping people to work, to be able to work. In that case, well, in that sense, I mean, it's not just incentivized, it is also expected. It is also expected that people should work because the social system is so good, so everybody has the opportunity to keep working. And this, one could say, is actually quite normative. As Espen Andersen says in this quote, all benefit, all are dependent, and all will presumably feel obliged to pay. Point to some normative values about people enacting their citizenship through working, through participating in society. And it also raises the question whether or not it is okay not to work and to go for other potentials and values and goals in your life. And that brings us into the realm of career guidance, as career guidance is at its core a conversation about how to live your life and how to achieve that state of welfare to let you fulfill the potentials that are important to you. And it is also important to note that as career guidance is most often in the Nordic countries actually a welfare good, it is an instrument of stateness. It is one way that the state reaches out and touches individual lives. Hence, it is an activity that bases itself on this level of trust and this appearance of a social system wanting to do good in the individual life. So when it comes to giving career guidance within the sphere of Nordicity, I think that these 4 codes, as they are presented in the new book on Nordic career guidance, are good signposts. So one thing is remembering that career and career guidance are embedded in context. And I have argued in this lecture that this context is specifically geared towards thinking about egalitarianism and about equality between people and helping people achieve their potentials, no matter where they come from or who they come from. Community is an important resource for career guidance, and this is about remembering that even though realizing individual potentials is important, actually being able to give back to the community and to support the community values is also a very important part of participating and enacting citizenship. Co-construction as the defining professional approach to career guidance to me refers to the concept of welfare and how that differs and how having what is needed will be a different thing for different people. And this last point about collaboration between policy research and practice across the Nordic countries calls to a sense of community, a sense of common understanding about the specific challenges and opportunities within this region. And it calls us to remember that even though the Nordic countries are different, there is still much to learn from each other. So I would like to end this lecture by giving you a few questions for reflection. The first one is how to help people with their individual careers in a community-oriented context. While I have emphasized throughout this lecture that helping people fulfill different individual potentials is important, perhaps the most important one is the one of participating in society through work and feeding into community by supporting it and sharing the load. And as this context, some people would say that this context is heavily geared towards emphasizing community, as for instance the Jantelov from Denmark says that you shall not think that you are better than us, you shall not think that you are something. It is important to ask about how to balance the individual potential and the community focus of this context, and how to talk about that when you talk about individual careers. And another thing is, what does really career guidance for social justice mean in a Nordic context? When you have an entire system that emphasizes egalitarianism and equality between people, then what does this mean that you should actually do in your career guidance practice to work for social justice? So I hope that this has given you some food for thought. These are my references and these are my contacts. And I would love to hear from you if you have any thoughts about what I've just said and what I've presented to you. And I hope that this will give you some base for some good conversations during this course. Thank you.